So I'll bet you every single person in this room shares this experience of when they first got blockchain and they first had it explained in a way that finally sunk in and had that aha moment. Wait a minute. Well, that could mean anything. So we've got a wonderful panel come up here to talk about kind of the future of what blockchain and what a rollout of these technologies really could look like, with a vision of some really brilliant ideas led by Kahina Van Dyke. So Kahina, come on up.
Bring this up a little bit, people. Okay. I just yelled into the microphone. I'm sorry. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I am really, really happy to have these three people share the stage with me. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. The one thing I will say about each of them, I have known some of them for over 20 years, and we were part of internet. Like, we were having conversations about the internet. So I think it's really interesting to be back here. It comes full circle. But I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves just briefly, and then we'll get into it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Radin. I'm an author and right now an advisor to large enterprises and startups. I guess I could call myself a little bit of a marriage broker, helping bring them together and work together. Kahina and I have known each other for a long time, probably back to about 2001 or so, when I was leading the digital transformation of Citi's U.S. credit card business, which was about a $5 billion P&L with about 100 million customers at its peak. And about 4.5 years ago, after holding other roles at big financial services companies, American Express, E-Trade, AXA, I decided to cross over to the other side and use my passion and skills that are really all about how do you execute innovation, particularly in these complex environments, to make it happen. My book was just released a few weeks ago, and thank you, all of you who picked up a copy of the Changemakers Playbook. I hope you enjoy it. That's me.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tokumbo Ishmael. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Alethea Capital, and also the chairperson of the African Venture Capital Private Equity Association. So I'm a fund manager based in Nigeria. I manage a couple of impact investment funds. Chiefly, those that are relevant for today are some financial inclusion funds that I run, where we invest in financial intermediaries to broaden access to finance for the unbanked and underbanked. And I can speak more about that as we go along.
Hi.
Wow.
You ready for this? I'm Ben Bravin. I'm head of Level 39 in London. It's a hub of around about 200 fintech and cybersecurity companies right in the heart of the Canary Wharf financial district. You have just heard from TransferGo, who are one of our members, and of course Ripple are too. So we're trying to do three things for companies. We're trying to create conditions, first of all, in which a company can grow from minimum viable product right through to enterprise size, so just solving infrastructure. The second thing we're trying to do is create conditions in which talent performs as well as possible. So even small teams have access to the very best possible support. And thirdly, we're trying to make all of this addressable by the wider population, so politicians, regulators, investors, and of course the media. So we provide a kind of simplifying and clarifying role for the huge diversity of innovation that goes on in our community of about 1,250 people from a little over 50 different countries. So far, that's Level 39. What we're keen to do, of course, is make sure that every company that gets involved has a better chance of success. We reduce friction, we increase access, and we seek to support high performance.
So it's Level 39. I was living in London when Level 39 launched in Canary Wharf, and it's really amazing to see the fintech community that has developed around it. So I'm a big fan, and you are, I think, the largest fintech incubator in Europe, and definitely one of the most influential globally. So congratulations to your own startup story of the last years developing Level 39. I want to start with international trends, because a lot of what we talk about is how we are reducing friction and how we're moving money cross-border. I would love to start with Ben and Tokes. Maybe I'll start with Tokes, about what you are seeing in financial services, what you're seeing in fintech. You're right at the cutting edge. You are investing in the companies who are coming with a great idea or a problem that they want to solve in the world. And what are you seeing right now from Lagos? And by the way, she did fly in from Lagos just to be here with us today, so thank you.
You're welcome. So when we started our financial inclusion fund, the research at the time showed that about 70% of the Nigerian population where we were focused at the time was excluded from banking services. And in a country of 180 million people, of which about 80% of those are in the adult group, 70% unbanked is quite significant. And being unbanked, when you're in the West, it's difficult to envisage not being able to just save your money, no matter the amount, having to put it under your mattress, not being able to be in a place where you can actually go into an institution and cash in or cash out your money. So back then, the retail banks and commercial banks were very focused on the 1%, we used to say, of the population, those that had money and the corporates. And they got very complacent in the delivery of their services. And what we've seen, we invested in our first fintech about 10 years ago. What we've seen is these challenger fintechs come along and begin to provide access in communities, begin to make it possible for people to send payments from one family member to another without having to carry bags of cash. And we're very much a cash economy. And I remember about 10 years ago when I said to someone that, I can now sit, I said this with excitement, I can sit in my living room and pay my bill. The person thought, what's the big deal about that? But in economies in Africa where really it's not just that the banks don't exist in communities, people just don't have that ability. So the fintechs have come along, and what they've done a couple of things. First of all, they've broadened the access, but also they've made the commercial banks turn their business models around and begin to say, we need to look at retail customers. So, in a large economy, when most of the banks are saying, we need to turn around from just looking at corporates, it's a major shift. And what they've also been able to do is then get those big commercial banks to begin to look at how technology can play a larger role. So despite having the deeper pockets, they were not doing this, but the fintechs came along and sort of stoked the fire. And so we've been investing in quite a few of those, and latest research in our markets now is showing that the number of unbanked have gone from something like 70% to more like 45%. So
Significant.
it's quite
significant
a significant
move.
change.
What is your favorite success story about a fintech disruptor or challenger that you invested in and you saw them actually scale up and grow?
Yeah, so I mean, our first investment, it's like, I feel like it's my baby. We were the first institutional investor into a company called Paga. And when we invested, Paga had 2,000 clients, if that, and was operating out of one building in Lagos, and was more fixated on how they could raise tens of millions of dollars to market to still the 1%, the same target group as the banks. And when they came to me, I said, well, this is great technology. And because I'd worked with Kahina on wallets about 20 plus years ago, I recognized that wallets had to play a role in helping to drive this financial inclusion. Because we started off investing in microfinance, brick and mortar. So fast forward 10 years later, and I was just having this discussion with Amy, one of the largest banks in Nigeria has roughly about 10 to 12 million customers, they say. The fintech that we invested in just 10 years ago, and by the way, this largest bank is about 100 years old. This fintech now has nearly as many customers at over 9 million. So for me, that's just an amazing challenger story, and not just targeting the same customers, but creating new markets with new products.
Ben, I would ask you the same question, because you really do sit in a really unique purview because you work with the regulators in the UK and across Europe. You work with the big banks and you work with the disruptors. And as you're seeing all of these challengers come up, what makes